We're live. Is everyone in?
I think so.
Can you see who's in?
I think we're live. Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining Webtopia and StoreHero, where we're going to look at the 5 profit killers from this BFCM. We know that you could have been watching the Apple live stream with the unveiling of the new iPhone 17. So we really appreciate you joining us here today. As we all know, that Black Friday, Cyber Monday is the loudest week of the year, no doubt for most of you. And it's the easiest time to accidentally buy revenue and also sell at a loss. So today we're going to cut through all that noise. We're going to look at which levers are actually growing profit and not just ROAS. We're going to hit ad account pitfalls. We'll look at margin traps and offers, creatives, and practical Meta and Google budget decisions. We're going to, and for you guys, please expect frameworks and not fluff. So let me kick it over for some introductions to our panelists. Please, one of you take it away.
I'll kick off. Hey guys, Thomas here, co-founder at StoreHero. Just wanted to jump on really quickly here to say hello. Really, thanks very much everybody for showing up today. Obviously, for those of you who don't know me, a co-founder here at StoreHero. StoreHero is a profit reporting and forecasting tool for e-commerce brands around the world. We really help brands focus on integrating all of their key e-commerce, marketing, and finance operations to get a clearer view of their core margins, unit economics, and profitability.
Cool. I'm Tris. Nice to meet you. I'm CEO of Webtopia and Oaks Email Studio. We're a direct-to-consumer e-com agency who help brands grow. We love to create commercial masterpieces, and that's what we do with every single client that we work with. So glad to have you here. Glad to be able to share some of the stories that we have.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ben. I'm the head of growth in Webtopia. I've been working with Webtopia now for 6 years now. And my main role is to make sure that our partners are growing in the right direction while staying profitable.
And for those who didn't notice, myself and Ben look the same because we're twins.
I love commercial masterpieces. I've never heard that one before, but I'm looking forward to getting into hearing more about it.
Sure.
Brilliant. Let's look at the 5 profit killers that we typically see throughout the Black Friday holiday season here. And we'll take it from the top here, but we'll be looking at the ad account setup, the unit economics and margin traps, different product offerings, creative, which is a massive one here, and then the lack of personalization. So let's start with the, I guess let's take it back for a second. Thomas, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see brands make going into BFCM, and why does it matter so much?
Yeah, I suppose, look, firstly, it's a fantastic time of year for e-commerce. You know, it's really exciting. There's such a buzz around it. The Black Friday hype train has really come into full flow over the last 10 years. That being said, with that huge hype train comes a huge level of expectation and pressure that a lot of DTC founders are under to make sure that very much condensed buying period for a lot of their customers goes smoothly. And, for a lot of our e-commerce brands that we see on StoreHero now, anywhere from 30 to 50% of their full year revenue can actually happen within a 6-week period towards the end of the year. And there's so many pieces to get right. So obviously there's so many pieces to get right, and that, planning is obviously absolutely critical. But if I was to kind of touch on maybe some of the mistakes or the things I see brands potentially not think of or plan correctly, from my perspective, first and foremost, is understanding what is the core objective of the business. Where are we? Let's do a full retro on the year before and understand, are we trying to just maximize revenue this year, or are we trying to, in tandem with that, also grow profitability? The easy answer, and most brands will tell you, we want both. But what I would say to people is that's fine, but we need to be very specific in terms of how much revenue growth we want and how much profitability growth we want. Because if we're going to just straight out maximize revenue, that's a very different strategy than if we're trying to pull back on growth and more so take more efficiency. Maybe we're not going to spend as much. We want more profitability at the end. It depends on where you are with your business. Are you trying to, build for a sale in the next couple of years? Are you gotten to a point where you're happy where the business is at and you're looking to just, maybe run it for a bit more cash, whatever the case may be? Every business is very different. But first and foremost, I would say, having a very, very clear understanding as to what you're trying to achieve, both from a revenue and profit number, have those numbers locked down, share them with your team, share them with your agency, and be very, very clear on what they are. Another one I would say, more so from a margin unit economics perspective, is I think we all get bombarded with 100 different emails on Black Friday now with 30% site-wide sales, 50% site-wide sales. It's relentless. Don't feel you need to copy every brand out there. Every brand is very, very different, and just be very, very make sure that you're understanding that increased revenue, if it's heavily discounted, may not necessarily be the best play for your brand. Yes, there are obviously situations, and everybody should have some kind of BFCM offer out there, but it doesn't necessarily need to be 20, 30% off site-wide if you see your competitors doing it. Play your own game and just be very, very clear on what you want from it. So two things there. Just be very careful on the discounts, be understanding why you're discounting certain product lines. What does your offer structure kind of look like? How does that integrate with your discounting strategy? And secondly, be very, very clear on what you want from a revenue and a profitability growth perspective as well.
Awesome. Great scene setting. Thomas, just a really quick question before I toss a question towards the Webtopia guys. I always see a lot of emphasis on steep discounting for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but do you see the benefit in offering any other types of incentives past that? Does it always have to be a discount, or can we go beyond that?
No, not at all. That's actually a really, really good point as well. That's another trap I think people can fall into, is thinking that it has to be a discount. There's a lot of other ways that we can look at things. Like, for instance, we worked with a skincare brand last year, and let's just say their average order value was around $70. And they actually had exceptionally good margins, like 70, 80% plus. They were going to give a 20% discount. And actually what they did instead was give a free gift with purchase. And when you looked at the 20% discount and the impact that would have taken from a margin perspective relative to what the free gift with purchase was, the customer was getting a much better deal, and that the value from a retail perspective of what they were getting was so much higher than what the discount was going to allow for. But from a brand perspective, the margin was preserved because they kept on. They didn't actually give the discount in the end. They just gave almost a buy one, get one half price, or I think it was a free gift for purchase. I can't remember specifically. But there are loads of different ways. So think about your average order value optimization. Do the unit economics work to understand what is the difference for us on our hero product between giving a 20% discount and seeing, is there a tangential product that we can give away for free in line that actually maybe could preserve some margin that would allow us to scale harder.
Great to see. Great to hear. Ben and Tris, for either of you guys to tackle here, and I'm sure everybody who's watching and listening, Meta and Google are typically our main drivers here for spreading the word of our big sales, our incoming sales. Mm-hmm. However, enough conversations that I have with merchants all the time is where they going to maximize their budget in either direction there. So do you guys have any thoughts or can offer any advice here on how to balance between Meta and Google for the upcoming season?
Yeah, well, I suppose when you're looking at Meta and Google, you have to look at them as platforms of demand capture and demand generation. So when we say that, we look at, when people are going to Google, they have intent. They're looking for a phone, they're looking for a bag, they're looking for whatever it is. And when you're looking at Meta, people don't go on in the evening to look for your ads. They go on their evening to look at new houses or someone's new car or a baby or whatever it is, and you're kind of coming in between that. So when you're looking at that, you're really using your Meta as your top of funnel and middle of funnel, and then your Google as your middle of funnel and bottom of funnel. So on the Google side of things, what you're looking to do is maximize the share of voice across the high intent middle of funnel traffic while defending your brand traffic. So generally we say about 10% of spend should be going on brand, but that can creep up as far as 25% in these periods, because you definitely don't want your competitors coming in on your turf and taking your customers away from you. So definitely keep a very close eye on that on the Google side of things. And then when you're looking at your shopping feed and things like that, you need to optimize those. We use a tool called StoreHero. And there's obviously many out there in the market. This is not a plug for that. But basically what it allows us to do, it allows us to create engaging images within the feed without affecting what's happening in the back end of your website. So we don't have to change the images there, and things like data feed watch as well, which allow us to manage the feed and optimize towards the purchase, I suppose, at the end. And then with the budgets, make sure they're uncapped, but have efficiency rules on them as well. So you want Google to go out there and do its thing. You don't want to put too many guardrails on it. Obviously, you don't want to go bust, but like you want to make sure that you're maximizing as much as possible. If your brand is well known, Google is very, very good for you in this period of time. So like I'm gonna say some extremes here. Like if you're Nike or Apple or something like that, people know about you. People are gonna go looking for you. So you don't need to necessarily create that demand. So Google will be your main focus. Whereas if you're a very visual brand, maybe not as well known, then Meta is going to be a platform that you rely a little bit more on in this Black Friday, Cyber Monday time. And one point as well, just to bring up in this point, is attribution windows in this period will shorten. So generally we see the Google attribution window is about 30 days and Meta attribution window is about 7 days. People move so fast, like they just want to be served so quickly. And when they are looking at other products like your product, they'll continuously on the same day, on the same hour, on the same minute. We can see it with things like email, where you can look at a 1 hour attribution. That will show you how fast people are making them decisions. So when you're looking at attribution windows in this period, try to look as short as possible, like your 1 day click in Meta. And then the last thing I'd say, which Tris, you can pick up here, is lean into your owned media as well, because that's going to convert the best for you in this Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So use a period now to get that, to build that owned media up, and then utilize that then in the Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Absolutely.
I've one or two just quick ones, Ben, on that. Sorry, Trish. Just really interesting. So you kind of talked around the difference between Meta and Google, one being demand capture, one being demand creation. Is there any like best practices, for instance, if one is demand like creation, should we be running more prospecting as like an overarching percentage of spend between Meta and Google? Should we be over-indexing heavier on Meta in the lead up to BFCM and then kind of maybe tipping the scales over to Google? Or is that something that you guys tend to think about or see happen often?
Less so platform to platform, more so levels of the funnel, right? So you want to be going top funnel heavy around this time of year. So you want to be building that lead form, building those funnels up. And then when it comes to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, start moving much more into the retargeting, loyalty, retention side of things, where it's much cheaper and you get much more bang for your buck. That's not to say completely turn off top of funnel in Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but just understanding you're doing the groundwork for it now, and that during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, there's going to be so much competition for these consumers that your expectations should go down a little bit for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think the only thing I would add to what the both of you said on that, I think it's very important to start with a very clear end goal in mind. I mean, it sounds very zen and basic of me, but I think it's something to think about from a standpoint of like, look, we're here to make money here. We're here to make profit. We're not here to just try and massively drive up our revenue if you're not making profit from it. So having an MER goal, having a contribution margin goal is going to be really important going into this, so that you're very aware of how much you can spend to be able to make money from whatever ads you're doing, be it at a product level, category level, or indeed at a very top level. If you're running with an agency, make sure they're clear on that goal as well, and not just kind of rolling the dice and hoping that they understand it. Everyone on the team needs to be clear on it, because there's people making decisions at an ad level and a creative level that want to be able to design for this. So it's really important to have that. And I would say then, just to your point then on I suppose top, like demand capture versus demand gen, Black Friday, Cyber Monday time is very much a longer period than just a week. So building up that awareness, building up that audience is going to be really important to do over the next kind of 6 to 12 weeks while we're leading into Black Friday. It's going to be massively important.
Great point, Tris. Actually, we're actually 80 days away exactly from the holiday kicking off. I'm sure everyone, if whoever's listening or available, please feel free to drop any questions or comments in the chat. But I'm curious to know how many of you have already started your preparations. I mean, this is a great place to begin here on today's call. But it'd be great to hear from you. And if you have any questions as we keep going through here, please do not be shy to post them, as we will get our in-house experts to answer them. Right on.
Just
any
one
other
more
final
on that, Mitch. I'd love to hear from the guys. Like, obviously, with Webtopia as an agency, guys, I'm guessing hundreds of audits of accounts. Mm-hmm. And with this being such a focal point of the year, has there been any profit killer horror stories that you've seen in years gone by when you've gone to audit accounts? Has there been just some absolute disasters. I'd love to hear about them. That you can just share with our audience as this is a horror story you want to avoid.
Yeah, like it's tough to nail down a specific example, but it has been.
I know I put you on the spot.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. There's been loads of situations. Like people at the end of the day, like obviously ROAS is important and things like that, but I'll probably be criticized a little bit for this, but it's a bit of a vanity metric, because at the end of the day, you don't go to the bank and you don't go, okay, I got 7x ROAS on this profit. Can I take out my money? Like you look at the profit, you look at the margin. So like stuff that's 7x ROAS, again, you have to remember, especially what attribution window and what modeling is on the platforms that you're using. They're very much model data. So it's a lot of brands that we look at are still working off ROAS, and like our ROAS goal is this, which is a guider, but at the end of the day, it's not a business growth metric. Business growth metric is obviously contribution margin, profit, that sort of thing. So it is quite common that you see these ad accounts focusing maybe on the wrong audiences. Like one of the big things that we're doing at the moment is lifetime value over 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And, people understanding, is it better to pay a little bit more for X person and they'll come back 4 times throughout the year? Or is it better to pay for a Y person and they come back and they're one and done? And understanding the metrics on that side. And some of the brands that we talk to just don't understand that it's instant wins they're looking for. It's like, okay, we want a 5x ROAS right now. Okay, but what's your lifetime value? I'm not sure, but we'll deal with that down the line. So yeah, it's hard to think of an exact example, but yeah, no, there is
one there actually that you're saying there. Now, one of the things that we're hearing, and the all year people have been just banging this drum of creative is the biggest thing ever. You got to have creative coming out your arse for this, and like that's great, right? That really is a nice message to build. And look, since Andromeda has been brought into Meta, obviously really stepped up the need for creative. But one of the things we're seeing a lot more in accounts when people are getting audits, they're going, we're pumping in creatives and not seeing any results. And one of the biggest flags that I'm seeing is people are going, they're panic testing. They're going, oh, this is going to be a great iteration and a great iteration of that. Look, Nana Banana has come in. There's VO3. There's ways of like iterating with AI. And all of a sudden, you're starting to see this massive kind of, influx of creative. And one of the things I would say is like not having a clear testing strategy between now and say a couple of weeks before Black Friday, just so that you know what's working, rather than going, hey, this is going to be what we're going to run with on Black Friday and hopefully it works. You should be rolling into Black Friday week knowing this shit is going to work. Sorry, pardon, I probably shouldn't curse, but
no, that's a great comment. I'm going to stop because I want to follow up on that. And just before we dive into the profit killers, 2 things. 1, please, gentlemen, please make sure to have your phones on silent for the presentation. And then 2, we have a great comment from Kitty, and you did mention this, Tris, about Andromeda. And Kitty's saying here that she is just seeing worse performance because of Andromeda being introduced here. And now, as we're, again, 80 days away, let that sink in. Any advice or strategy for her to overcome or tackle this before the holidays? Because again, as you're just saying, she wants to be absolutely confident as she goes into the week prior. Yeah. So any insights there to battle or to take advantage of this?
I was going to say, sorry about the text there. Someone's just asking for an audit there.
That's all right.
One of the things actually we're discussing with, there's a few kind of creative agencies I'm discussing with this at the moment. And one of the biggest things we're seeing with Andromeda is relevance is really coming back to the fore. Years and years ago, kind of prior when kind of COVID, when people started to game the system and really start pushing it through, relevance was massive, a massive thing to kind of to drive engagement on the platform. As Meta and general kind of social platforms are fighting for your attention, they're trying to get more people to stay on the platform. Therefore, they need to increase the relevance of the ads. You saw that going through phases of it with Google and everything else. But just on the creative, what I would say is your creative has to be very relevant to the audience you're targeting. This whole thing of like your creative is your targeting now is even more important. So when you're creating creative, think about it from a video standpoint. You want to try and improve your hold rates, so people actually staying on the video, people clicking through. Engagement is far more important, and you can't do the old trick of the engagement farming where you start just getting people to comment on your posts and everything else like that. So it's really trying to make sure that your softer metrics are a lot more important. They're becoming a lot more key to decreasing your CPMs and therefore decreasing your actual cost per acquisition. So I'd say the biggest things we've seen is actually not introducing your product for maybe 20, 30 seconds into the actual video, which is direct opposite to what we used to say, where it's like immediately you have to show them the product, this is where you're advertising, away we go. Andromeda has really changed that now and started to actually give a lot more benefit to people who are telling a story, getting people engaged, allowing users to identify themselves through their own behavior, watching the video, and actually then start to sell them the product as well. So that's something that's a major change, and something that whoever asked that question might be able to test over the next couple of days. Just be able to make that small change to your hook. Have a good hook, but then have something to actually people to stick around before introducing and selling to them. Because damn, I'm sick of being sold to, and I work in ads.
Kitty, I hope that helps add some context or towards your question there. But it does sound like you have a good opportunity to do some trial and error and find the strongest creatives, pitches, hooks, and ads as you ramp up here to take advantage of Andromeda. Great. Let's dive into these profit killers now and have a look at the first tier that I've had up for a while, which is going to be our ad account setup. So, fellas, what is the most damaging ad account mistake brands repeat every Black Friday, Cyber Monday? How do you spot it early?
Yeah, I'll cover off Meta from my side. So one of the biggest mistakes we see people make is panic testing or over fragmentation. So people are like, oh no, it's not working. We've had a bad day. Let's throw in loads of new stuff and see how it does. So panic testing, like you have to approach Black Friday, and it used to be that way 5, 6, 7 years ago. You used to be able to like throw 100 new creatives in on Black Friday and they'd crush it. But gone are those days. Yet there has to be a tactical approach towards this. So do your testing now. Find your go-to. Find your plan B. Find your plan C. So that when you do have those tough days, you're not panicking and over testing. And then the fragmentation piece I'm talking about is, we have some ad accounts that spend £1 million a month. They could have 3 campaigns and then with 4 different audiences. Like when you start fragmenting too much, you're taking away from what Meta is trying to do. So you need to feed into Meta, which is an algorithmic base. It very much is the AI doing it for you now. Like what the skill in Meta is very much the creative side of things. But when you over fragment it, you're taking the power away from Meta as well. So there is still room in there for your retention, your middle of funnel and things like that. But when it comes to top of funnel, lookalike audiences, interest audience, those sort of things, they're not necessarily a huge thing anymore. So feed it into the machine and let the machine do its thing. Guide it with like big cats, cost caps, things like that, but don't try and over fragment it. Not being prepared, as I said, in terms of winning ads. So start doing that now. So have your plan A, B, C, and D. Not spending on what's working as well. We've had so many conversations with brands in the years gone by where people have been like, I've spent 20,000 making this ad, or my daughter made this ad or something like that. You need to follow the metrics. You need to follow what is working rather than gut feeling as well. And make sure that, you can scale what's working, because no matter how much if an ad is doing badly, if you keep just pounding more money into it, it's just gonna take all the money from the ad account. And we've seen it loads of times. Is a big mistake that people make sometimes. If you don't have a fluid budget, if you have a set budget, some brands will say, okay, we want to spend 10,000 over the 20-day period or the 10-day period or whatever way they want to look at it. If you don't have that, one of the mistakes is spending too much too quickly. Now, I will contradict myself a little bit. If it's working and it's hitting your goals, absolutely spend it. But some people are like, let's get out there, get in front of people, get them buying from us. And then all of a sudden it comes to the big buying days, which are obviously Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the weekend around that. And then there's no budget left. So make sure you're pacing yourself correctly over that time if you do have a very strict budget. One of the ones that was interesting, I was talking with one of our growth leads today, and turning off ads too quickly. So 81% of millennials and Gen Zs stay shopping post holidays or post sale period. So it's massively important, as well as long as you haven't got an ad that's like 50% off down your throat, which is really out of place. If it's working, leave it on. Like Meta is very much a momentum game. So the more momentum you have behind you, the better it'll deliver. So if you're getting loads of people purchasing from an ad, that is then telling Meta, okay, this ad is delivering really, really well. So let's deliver to a better qualified audience for cheaper, and then we'll get better results. And that's when you see your CPMs, your CPCs, and everything start dropping. So if stuff is working post-sale and you're not, massive about, worried about, oh, it looks bad or whatever, leave it running. Absolutely leave it running. Sorry, I feel like I'm completely going off the question.
Can I ask you a question on that then? Let me give you an out.
Can
If we're increasing if we're letting our budgets run for some of these campaigns, let's say, how should we approach if we see that cost per acquisition is maybe getting out of hand in terms of some campaigns? When do we draw the line there? Because that's going to be important for us scaling profitably, especially as we're trying to attract as many customers as possible and as profitably. So is there a general guideline that you'd recommend? Is it just setting a firm CPA, CAC when we're attracting customers in this time period, or any advice you want to recommend there?
Yeah, well, I suppose in this period, a lot of people, founders, agencies, stuff like that, they're going to be spending hours and hours and hours in the account. So they'll know, especially around Black Friday, Cyber Monday, they'll know what a good soft metric is. So they'll know what CPMs are, CTRs, cost per ad cards, those sort of stuff. So you generally get an idea before, let's say, for your example, your CAC is €100. You'll know before you spend €100 if it's guiding in the right direction and whether it's going to be a good ad or a bad ad. I'm not saying turn it off, but you have a general knowledge of whether it's going to be good or bad. So definitely keep an eye on that. As I said, you'll be in the ad account all day during these times. So if you see something spending too much, this is where your plan B, C, D comes into place, and you start feeding it more creative, especially if it's top of funnel, advantage plus shopping within Meta. There's not necessarily a learning phase. You add in a new ad, and within half an hour, 40 minutes, it's active again. So there's not necessarily this down period of relearning and things like that. So if you're seeing those metrics going the wrong way, just act quickly.
I think the thing you're saying there on BCD is very important as well, like the different steps. It's not just like random ads you've done. You've planned this out in advance. This is the learning that you've done to know that what kind of hooks are working, what angles are working, and this is what you're going to bring in here. These are the new ads straight away, rather than straight up just being like, oh, I think this ad could work. You've done the testing, you've got the knowledge, so that's super.
Right.
I'll just add two more real quick things. So what I said earlier on about the ASC and the top and the interest audience and lookalikes, they're not completely dead. Some people still use them, and that's absolutely fine. But one thing I'll make sure is that your budget allocation to those ad sets or audiences are correct. So if your audience is 3 million people and you're spending 50 quid a day on it, that's not going to be effective for you. Like, you need to make sure that the money you're investing into those audiences is penetrating the audiences and they're seeing what you're looking to advertise.
Right. That's a good tip. Okay. And then, take it away.
I think it kind of segues into the next topic here, actually, Mitchell, if you want to bring it up on the next screen, just around kind of unit economics and I suppose margin leaks or margin preservation. Like, to Ben's point there, having, even from, I spent a couple of years working at Shopify, you would be very surprised at the amount of brands who don't have a plan B or C in place, or a plan A in some situations. So, we need to be very, very clear. Like, first thing I would recommend every brand on this call, if we're taking anything away from today, is do a retrospective look at last year, pull apart the week of Black Friday, go day by day, look at your revenue numbers each day, look at your CAC numbers, look at the MER targets and contribution margin targets. Maybe you haven't done it yet. If you haven't, definitely a really, really good place to start. As Mitchell said, we're 80 days out. Let's just see, did our highest revenue days actually stack up with our lowest CAC days, our lowest contribution margin days, our highest contribution margin days? And what can we actually learn from that information? Like, for some brands, understanding, yes, we obviously need to understand if we're overspending on ads to make sure that we kill that to preserve margin. But the flip side is also equally as important. If we're getting to a position whereby we're spending into Black Friday, things are going exceptionally well, do we just ease off the gas and say, we're doing a great job, but we're in such a condensed buying period here? How do we get the positive signals and how do we get the confidence to just double down completely when we see those green flags come in? And that's really where having a very, very clear plan for what that week, what every day needs to entail, not just from a revenue standpoint, but from a new customer, a CAC, and a contribution margin standpoint. If you're getting to 8, 9 p.m., things are really ramping, they're going well, that will give you the extra confidence to give it an extra kick and make sure that you're not spending wildly in what is a really condensed buying period. But it's just as important to make sure that we understand when to double down as when to pull back. And having a clear plan is just the very, very first step. So doing a retrospective look, pull apart last week, go through revenue, contribution, MER, and CAC targets for each one of those days, and just see what can you extract from that. Where are we at capacity? Did we actually have potential to scale more? And how do we use that information to plan for BFCM in 2025?
One thing I'd add to that as well is actually look at the attribution of your returning versus your new customers. Your new customers, if they've learned a lot in the weeks leading up, and then you do your launch of whatever your sale is that is happening, a lot of those are going to clear out pretty quickly the first launch, especially when you send the first email. So have a look in your Klaviyo account. If you jump into there and if you go into the settings attribution, there should be like a comparison tool. You can literally compare hour by hour comparison. I think it's like hour to 12 hours to a day, and see just exactly how long it takes for someone to actually buy from that email. Look at that from new versus returning customers and understand, is it worth, where are you actually getting that sale from? Where was not just the last touch point, but maybe kind of 2 or 3 back, and understand for what levers you can pull, because it's all going to happen really, really quickly. So if you can have those plans laid going into this, you'll be able to be much more informed in terms of what you're going to be doing, because the moments happen so fast. It comes and goes every year just as fast.
Mm-hmm. Go for it. Take it away.
Sorry. One big profit killer we saw with the brand last year, and Ben, you touched on the idea of cost caps and bid caps, was that a brand absolutely knocked it out of the park for BFCM. But what they hadn't realized was that they hadn't actually adjusted their cost caps or bid caps to account for the 25% site-wide sale that they were about to go on. And therefore, their target ROAS or their target CPA was not adjusted for the big new discount that was then applied to the product. So just make sure that as you are going to be running cost controls going into BFCM, just make sure you've discount adjusted that CPA, that cap, to make sure that you're not overspending into margin that essentially isn't there.
That's a great point. And what I was going to say too is I've seen enough cohort analysis reports with merchants, and we're looking at November and what does that customer acquisition payback window look like too. And that's a great thing to look at to see, great, we've had a huge spike in new customer acquisition, but are we making our marketing spend back on that first order? Or if we have these quickly consumable products, are they coming back within a reasonable time? It's great to acquire a ton of new customers during this time period, but if we're not making money off of them, it doesn't always put us in the best position. So just to reiterate what you fellas were saying. And Katie came back with another question here too, and I think it's about the Klaviyo, curious about the 48-hour delay in the platform and how it affects on her day-to-day edits as well.
Yeah.
Any comments on that, Tris?
Yeah, I definitely think there's an element to that. I think, look, when it comes to the actual emails coming through, the guys have a really strong connection there with StoreHero and Klaviyo for sure. But I think just generally when it comes to looking, you've got your 48-hour delay, but you also have your, when you get in there and you actually look at the comparison, like I said, 1 day or whichever, you can actually understand that. What I would say to you is understand your unit economics per new and returning customers so that you can actually pull levers. Like I said, if there's a delay in data coming in, there's not much you can do in terms of actionable. You can't change anything. You're not going to, unfortunately, you can't update Klaviyo's kind of how quickly they attribute the tool. But what you can do is have a look at your Shopify and understand, for example, in Shopify, how many new returning customers we're going to have and like how many you just sent your email to. So then you can see what your CPA is at that, but also then maybe have a look at your CAC as well. So like you put them into 2 different segments and say, right, this is my new, this is my returning customers, and understand like how much your CAC has gone down when you send your email. So follow that in terms of the levers you're going to be pulling on your media. But then if you're going to send another email on the same day when it comes to Klaviyo, just jump in and have a look at the 1 hour. It's not a 48-hour delay. There is stuff coming in at the same time. You just need to have a look at the dashboard I mentioned there. So I think, like I said, it's settings, then go under attribution, and then there's a comparative tool there. Happy to answer any questions on that later if you want me to go into more detail.
It's a great tip. Okay, checking out the third here, that the third part we're looking at in the product offer. I think this will also tie into to a bit of what we were talking about at the beginning too, with discounts and maybe trying gifting options. But for you, Ben, like what is separating, or what separates an effective BFCM offer from one that is just burning ad spend here?
You know, when it comes to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we see so many ignorant ads just thrown down your throat, and listen, it's part of the game. It's like black and white flashing 50% off, buy now, you know, all this sort of stuff. What I'd say is, like, if you're going into the market with a 20% off, and you already offer 10% off for new customers year round, you're not going to get a huge amount of attraction to that. You know, what we're seeing working really well, like what Thomas said earlier on, was like tiered sales, because first of all, that keeps up the size of your basket and your AOV. But what I'd say with tiered sales is, don't overcomplicate it. Let's keep it. We generally keep it around 3. So, like, let's say 25% off 100, 35% off 150, 45% off 200, sort of thing, or, you know, generally something like that. Nothing too like some people try to do 6, 7, 8 tiers. Yeah, it's a bit complicated. Urgency and scarcity as well. So, like, you know, while it lasts kind of language is really, really important. Because when you're competing on price alone, it can be pretty tough. You know, like if you're just going out there with a, you know, nobody knows who you are, and you're like 40% off, it can get a bit tough. When it comes to things like the codes that you're giving out as well, keep them simple. Keep them super simple. We've seen brands being like, use code 10% off, please, and thank you for my next purchase. It's like, no, let's just keep it super, super simple, because then people get to the checkout and you see them like falling off or trying to, you know, enter in wrong codes and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden you lose that. Like, the idea here is that you're trying to get someone from click to purchase as fast as possible, while continuing to do the educating and giving the warm and fuzzies as well. So keep it as super simple as possible. Look at the margins of the products as well. So what I'd say is, like, the products that have the better margins, use your paid ads to push those. Products that have less margin, use your owned media, or I suppose better value channels like Klaviyo or email to advertise those as well. So that, because, you know, when it comes down the line, you'll be looking at how much you spent on an ad, or, you know, advertising a product versus how much made, and it kind of all eats into itself. So make sure you're keeping those margins up as well. And then high perceived value as well. So one of the ones that does super well for a lot of our brands is, you know, gift with purchase, BOGO, those sort of things. So, like, we have a jewelry brand that does a tier sale, and then once you get to the final tier of the sale, which is, you know, nearly twice their average order value throughout the year, they give a free gift, and people go mad for it. I think it costs them 10 quid the gift, but people absolutely love it. And you can see people building their basket. If they're, you know, 80 quid, 100 quid below what that is, you'll see them shifting their basket up towards that as well. So it's important to give perceived value as well.
I think that's a banging point, because perceived value is one thing, right? But also, I think as well, if you think about it, like, taking a discount is going to be, you're almost getting the wrong type of customer. So somebody in a mindset that's going out to try and buy something at a discount is not necessarily the same type of customer that's going to bundle stuff together and spend more on it. It's how the people act. I mean, it's, you know, my mum always used to say to us, action speaks louder than words. People who act in the way and actually buy more to get the discount, it's going to be the same margins on your side, but it's the right type of customer for increasing your lifetime value. So that's going to be a much bigger thing for you when you're structuring your deals or your offers for this period. Not just this period, but generally, you want to go higher value. Unless you want to sell them cheap, stack them high, but like it's not necessarily going to be, you know, always the case for people. I mean, CPG works very well for that in terms of discounts, but I think when you're looking for kind of jewelry brands, skincare brands, anything that you want to have that higher value, that's going to be the way forward. Go up rather than down.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, we're in a period where there's just so much of your revenue is going to happen in such a condensed window. We just want to make sure that we're not scaling unneeded margin erosion, essentially. If I was approaching this there's a very different setup here when we think about product offer strategy for different types of stores. And what I mean by that is, if I was speaking with a store last week who has about 1,000 SKUs. So that when they are approaching their product offer structure for Black Friday, that's a very, very different, exercise that we need to carry out rather than if you're a brand with 10 SKUs. So if I was a brand with 1,000 SKUs, first thing I would be doing is going into StoreHero or into Shopify, exporting your product by sales report from last year, and looking at, okay, which products did we sell the most of, and then also add on the gross margin tab, which is available in both platforms beside it. And what you're really trying to figure out is there products that potentially we didn't sell enough of that we have plenty of margin of? And actually, to your point, Ben, is there products where maybe we don't actually have a lot of margin, but we put loads of creative and paid ad spend behind? If there is lower hanging fruit down there, for instance, if you have good higher value items that maybe you haven't sold a lot of because you're potentially scared to invest into the creatives, you don't think your customers will buy them, this is the time to try it. There are products where you can afford a little bit of a margin hit. They are products that you can scale at, even if it's a higher value product with better margins, you can afford a much lower CPA. And the other thing I would say is that, if you are coming into this time of year, we kind of touched on the free gift with purchase, like which products do we give as a free gift with purchase? And one thing that's a really easy win here is clearing old stock that's tied up in your 3PL or in your warehouse. If there's slow moving SKUs from last Christmas that you haven't been able to shift, that's a really good incentive to just give that away as a free gift with purchase, bulks up that perceived value. You were going to get rid of it probably in January at a 50-60% off sale. And that way you can get around not having to give a massive discount and therefore improve that cart value and obviously your margin as a result as well. So just a couple of little tidbits there from my side around the product offer structure.
Thomas, can I toss you another question off the back of that then? Where do we see like free shipping as an expectation versus like free shipping used as an incentive in a time like this too? Because we can discount products, and the customer, it's always going to cost the merchant to ship a product to them. So where do you see that impacting, or can we leverage that more as an incentive versus just an expectation during this holiday?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like the thing I would say, like depending on what your margin structure and your AOV structure and your business is, I don't think it's a great incentive for customers. Giving free shipping or not giving free shipping, that's not really going to incentivize me to make a purchase. I think the driver from a customer standpoint is going to be on what the offer structure looks like. So I'm just so hesitant to tell people to remove or to offer free shipping to everybody, because if you're a brand with like, a 50 or 60 euro or $50 AOV, $60 AOV, and you're now going to give $7 free shipping out to everybody and just take that as a margin hit, your CAC needs to be so much better to account for the free shipping. And I just don't see that difference. Like if you're gunning for a $20 CAC and now you give free shipping, are you going to expect that $7? Are you going to expect your CAC to drop by $7 to offset the $7 free shipping that you've just given out? I don't think so. So I would just think for brands, if you have your free shipping there, it's almost a level of margin protection. I'd be hesitant to remove it where possible. That being said, with the Amazonization of literally everything, Amazon will be going very, very heavy for BFCM. If you have Prime, you have free shipping. That's difficult to compete with. But just look at what you've done in previous years. Just do your own due diligence. Every business is very different. Everybody knows their customers much better than I will. I'd be slow to remove it where you can, because it is a big area that we just see brands give away. And I'm not sure how much added value or how much perceived value free shipping or paid shipping really adds to the customer experience. I'm not sure if you guys have anything to add on that one.
Discounting, isn't it? It's like this is just another form of a discount. It's like if people aren't willing to pay the $7 for shipping, they don't want that 150 pair of leggings. $150 for a pair of leggings. Like, they don't want it that bad. It's £7. Like, that's the world we're living in. You get a coffee for that.
That's a fancy coffee you're drinking. Good thoughts. I think a lot to work on. Okay, let's have a quick look here too at this image list slide, and dive into creatives, because I know we talked about this a bit before too with Kitty's question regarding Andromeda. But Ben here or Tris, what is you're gonna have to educate me here. So what is the real difference between a click winning creative and a conversion winning creative?
Do you want to take it, Tris, or would I?
No, you start, and I'll build on what you're talking about.
Okay, sweet. So click winning, it does what it says on the tin. Like what you're trying to do there is you're trying to get people to click on the thing. You're not necessarily trying to educate them. There is a certain area for this within marketing, but when it comes to BFCM, you don't like, you're not looking to just drive clicks, you're looking to drive conversions, because it's going to be so expensive. Like generally when we're looking at click winning creatives, we're looking at things like with bold hooks, pattern interrupts, like people, you know, unusual angles. We're looking at curiosity driven, like you won't believe this, you know, this offers high click-through rate, but not necessarily a good conversion rate. When looking at conversion winning creatives, what we're looking at there is super clear. So really, really clear offering. So what is this offering as a percentage or as a BOGO, whatever it is? You know, proof like testimonials and UGCs are really good for building trust, because people are getting peppered with ads all year round, and especially in this period as well. So if you can layer a level of trust on top of that with UGC, not just you, the brand, saying this is an amazing product, get people out there saying, you know, it's a super good product, and UGC, or pardon me, and testimonials and press mentions and things like that, they all layer a level of trust on top of it as well. So clear product benefit as well. So what is the solution that this is solving for? What is the problem that this is solving for people? And then obviously the direct CTA as well. So shop now, or, you know, wall stock last, or whatever it is. So when we're doing creative for our brand, we generally try to answer 4 questions when we're going through this creative. First of all, what's the benefit for the consumer in this ad? Does this ad answer that question for me? Second of all, positioning, the benefit or the unique value proposition of this for our audience. Is it relevant to them? Thirdly, emotional response. What's the emotional response we're looking for in this ad? And then finally, then clarity. So if the above 3 things I mentioned, the benefit, the position, and the emotional response, the boxes are ticked, generally you have clarity. And we break a lot of our ads that we make for the brands down into those 4 boxes. And we, you know, if we put the ad here and we have the 4 boxes and we say, does it answer this? And we're completely honest with ourselves. And generally when you see yes, yes, yes to those 4 boxes, you have a winning ad. So this is what, and this takes time to test and iterate. Very, very rarely will you go to market with your first ad and it hit every single point and you have a winning ad. A lot of times it could be a 3rd or 4th or 5th iteration, but every time you're getting better and better and better. It's, you know, there is a testing methodology behind this. It's not just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. If you're answering the questions, then, you know, this is where you find your plan A, B, C, and D that we spoke about earlier on as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there. I think the main things to kind of take away from that is there's a lot of ads out there, a lot of content out there. I don't know if anyone else is like me on TikTok, with I think my rec up to about 6 hours a day watching content. What's actually in it for me when I'm stopping? It's that emotional response. It's like, you are doing this. It's calling out the problem. It's going into the detail of the problem, or the issue that somebody might be facing, or even just allowing people to identify. Those old enough to remember BuzzFeed, I mean, that was a perfect example of people identifying themselves in certain places. What kind of cat are you? That kind of thing. This is more in a kind of a consumer psychology approach, and focusing on that emotional response and allowing people to take it, and positioning your product. If you're telling these micro stories, positioning your product in a way that will solve that emotional need, whatever it may be, the unsolved need. And some of the best ads start with the hook on that and actually start to unfold it. And as I mentioned earlier on to that question, that's really what Andromeda is allowing to do, is actually start to build out that connection with these ads an awful lot more, and punishing people who are straight in and be like, buy my product. Like, that doesn't work, because there's no emotional response there, and there's people sticking around or engaging with it. I think that's really important to take away, is making sure your ads pass the sniff test on those ones. I think it's going to be massive for you this year.
Right. I'm imagining the answer to this question is variable, but where do we see static or video typically leading the charge in terms of engagement, or is it really just that, you know, case by case?
It's a case by case, but what I would definitely say to you, and this has always been something that's really started to come out in the last probably 2 to 3 years. If you're starting to create content for, say, a certain audience, so if you're trying to, as the saying goes, obviously your content is your targeting. I think if you're pairing the two of them in the same ad set, it starts to actually allow you to target better with these ads. I think it's important to obviously have a decent mix of the two, but if you're going with video, it's very easy to take some snippets out of this and use those in your images as well. So I would start with it, like focusing on trying to create video and then take images out of those as well. Sorry, that doesn't answer the question hugely.
I think that was great. I thought that was helpful. Anybody in the comments, please validate Tris if that was helpful. Let's move on to the last. Oh, that was wrong slide. To the last of our profit killers here, and it's a lack of personalization. So, good question for you guys: that how much of an incremental lift does personalization like actually have during like hyper competitive periods like we're about to go into?
It's a tough one because we said earlier on, you don't want to over segment things because it can hurt your efficiency or your scale. So like there's certain places you can do it, like your DPAs, like serving exact SKUs to users who viewed X, Y, and Z. I wouldn't go down the level of like, hey Ben, saw you on our website, come back and buy. It's more like talking to a certain demographic of people that have come to your website through a certain landing page or to a certain area and things like that. Generally we see with the personalization outside of BFCM about a 5 to 25% conversion lift from personalization. Black Friday obviously changes because the amount of ads and things people are being hit by, and we generally see that drop to about 2 to 5%. But that 2 to 5% isn't to be sniffed at. There's a huge impact that 2 to 5% uplift has, because like what you're really trying to do, well, what most of the brands that we work with try to do anyway, is they're trying to make sure that they're not just buying a one and done kind of customer in Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We're looking for people to come back on a yearly basis, on a monthly basis. So that 2 to 5% uplift is massively important. And we generally see as well that there's an AOV boost with people that have got personalization. Back in the day, we used to, when we were creating ads, what we used to do is we used to create an audience of people that have added to cart in the last 30 days. And then we've created, the link for the ad was going to the cart. So when they went to the cart had their item that they added to cart already in the item. Now it looked like
that's a really good idea.
Smokes and mirrors.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
It was like, oh, this is magic, but it actually wasn't magic. It was just because obviously it saved on the computer or the phone or whatever they had visited on. Obviously that's getting a little bit harder with people owning their own data and things like that, and moving into this cookieless future. But it's different ways around it like that. There's loads of different tactics to do where people feel like, oh, I'm actually, they care about me, I'm going to purchase from them as well. So that little effort of personalization can make a huge difference for you.
Yeah.
I think what else can you see on site? We'll say we've talked about the ads there. We've kind of touched on email very, very briefly. Obviously, you guys are quite skilled from an email standpoint as well. For me, I'm just sick on Black Friday. I just get blasted with the ads. I know that I've gone to the entire database. Is there some like good personalization tips that you've seen specifically from an email standpoint that brands could, like, if they were to implement these 2 or 3 things from an email standpoint, that would work well? And also, last question for me on that would be, how many emails are too many emails around Black Friday?
No such thing, especially when your email agency is charging you per email. Just back on the first point, how can you get the best bang for your buck, right? I think one of the things is I always call it VIPization of your list. Allow people to sign into more things. Allow them to become their own VIP. Allow them to self-select. Hey, you want to be the first? They're already on the email list, but do you want to be the very first? You're one of our best customers. You want to allow them to self-select. Therefore, they're actually showing with action that they want to be there front of the line, so that they're actually asking you as opposed to just being part of a list. If you think about the GDPR for those in Europe, in America, that's just a draconian measure we brought in here for protection. One of the things that we do is we obviously are very careful with the data we give away, but we're actually not that careful at all. We just chuck it in because we want the 10% off, right? So if we can actually get people to take action to show what they want before Black Friday, that's going to be really key to actually stepping up into the emails as well. One of the other things, and this is mental, but so many people are missing this, check your deliverability scores. Check and actually see how good you are and actually getting your emails into the right inboxes. So if it's going to the promotions tab, it's going to the updates tab, but you're not being seen. So like your stuff's delivering, Apple is automatically opening up, and your open rates are great, but nobody's clicking it because nobody's actually opening it up. So have a look a bit more deeply at your deliverability. Now is the time to fix that. Get people opening your emails, get people clicking. A simple tip that you can use over the next couple of months is actually sending out some text-only emails that look like text from the founder. One of the things you're going to get from that is you're going to get your good open rates as well, but then you're also going to get good click-through rates as well. Because people, if you have a simple link of a click, people will click that and be like, "Oh, what's this?" and they'll click it straight away. That'll improve your deliverability, and therefore Black Friday will land in the inboxes as well, which would be really, really helpful. I've talked so much, I've forgotten your second part of your question, Thomas.
No, it's actually I can't remember it myself. What I was going to say is we're going to send kind of a follow-up email and a recap of this out to everybody. I would love, Tris, if you wouldn't mind even recording a 2-minute loom on how people can actually check that deliverability score, because to your point, it's so important. Email is going to be a huge channel for everyone, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on that.
Happy to do so.
Chris, we'll budget you 5 minutes for that video too, just to my people.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I'll send a loom, like whoever wants to watch it, have a thing, and you'll have the email as well, so you can send it on.
Listen, as we're hitting our time block here, I just want to ask for you guys, just before we close, just any practical advice for attendees here, like just any checklists or simple frameworks that we can apply, or the merchants can apply right after this session here, to get that head start.
Start now. Whatever you're planning to do in October, November, start it now. And I'm sure a lot of people are doing it. Just have a methodical approach about it as well. Think about why, from a consumer standpoint, why they'd buy from you especially when doing creative. I'm gonna make a plug here. There is like a how-to guide coming out that we're sending out in next week. Actually, there's 54 pages. Got like. There's a step-by-step guide of everything there as well. So,
I definitely
start next week.
I'd say definitely down on that in terms of starting now. Like, have a plan by the end of the week. What are you going to get done towards Black Friday before the end of this week? Because it's very easy to be like, I'll start now, and then the day-to-day just gets in the way. First of all, a lot of you have been definitely ordering for Black Friday right now, so you're like panicking that sales right now are terrible because everyone's like hasn't been paid, or the sales aren't going through, or someone's blaming iOS or something like that. Like, the sales right now are not going to be great because people are saving their money for when sales are happening. I mean, if it wasn't COVID, then it was the war, and then it was Trump, and I'm sure everyone's blaming everything else. You have to make your sales now so you can continue to make the proper level of sales in Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So make a plan this week to fix it, and then start to push forward into Black Friday. That's one of my biggest advice.
Great. Thomas,
yeah, from my perspective, just to wrap on that plan, I'd say like just do that retro on last year, pull apart the 7 days of BFCM, look at your top revenue days, your top profit days. Is there any surprises there? Why are they a surprise? And if they are a surprise, how do we integrate that into our plan for this year? Understand what the constraints are before going into Black Friday. Be very, very clear on what the revenue and profitability constraints that you're aiming yourself towards are before you go into that week. That is just going to make it so much easier for you to make spend decisions on the fly in what is quite a varied time of the year, and also a really kind of high pressure, high stress time of the year as well.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of great actions, a lot of great advice, and a lot of great tips for everybody. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Slides, recording here, checklist, comprehensive strategy guide. We can send everything to you after today. And if you have any questions, obviously, please reach out to the team here, these BFCM e-commerce marketing experts that we had the pleasure of picking their brains for the past hour. So thanks everybody for taking the time to enjoy us, to join us on this call, and everyone have a wonderful day and good luck in the holiday season.
Thanks a lot, guys.
The best comment, the best praise we got there was from Sean O'Sullivan, who said it was better than tuning into the Ireland match. So thanks very much, Sean. Glad you enjoyed it.
Proud for my Armenian people.
I guess it didn't go so well then.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.